Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today, this very historic day when we announced the 2010 Ford C. Frick Award winner for excellence in baseball broadcasting to Jon Miller. And we are pleased at this time to have Jon Miller join us from his vacation. He will be honored in Cooperstown on Sunday, July 25th.
Thank you. Obviously very excited to be the one who's here.
Hey, Jim. Good.
I missed Mr. Miller.
One might notice that the radio voice of the San Francisco Giants' familiar walk to the field is a bit quicker these days.
Hey, how are you? I'm well, how are you?
Or his smile is a bit wider this baseball season. It might be because Jon Miller was named the 2010 Ford C. Frick Award winner. Or it could be his love of baseball is as strong as it's ever been, and receiving the Ford C. Frick Award validates Jon's passion for the sport and for his craft as one of baseball's best play-by-play broadcasters of all time. It's not obvious that this beautiful California coastline home is owned by a man who has an encyclopedic knowledge of baseball until you arrive at this room.
The year I started broadcasting baseball in 1974 with Monty Moore, Monty loaned me a book. It was Red Barber's autobiography, Rhubarb in the Catbird Seat. I read a Hall of Fame broadcaster, one of the great pioneer voices of the game. And I learned a lot from that book. But Red also did another book called The Broadcasters. Larry King did a new introduction for it. And so I bought that. And for anybody who wanted to go into broadcasting, these two books I think will be great to have, great references for what is necessary for to do the job. One of my favorites has always been the Russ Hodges book, My Giants. Now that was Candlestick when I was a kid. So My Giants, it's a great, and for me it's a great reference book because these were Russ's eyewitness accounts of some of the great moments in the history of the Giants.
Back to throw. There's a long pass. It's going to be, I believe, the Giants win the pennant. 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 Bobby Thompson hits into the lower deck of the left field stand. The Giants win the pennant, and they're going crazy. They're going crazy.
I don't think there would have been another announcer working that could have come west with the ball club and did what Russ did, capture the fans.
2-0 delivery, and May sends another one. Tell it, bye-bye, baby. Aaron doesn't even move. It's going far up into the center field bleachers. Willie Mays has tied a record, 4 home runs in a game. County Stadium is going mad.
I grew up with Russ and Lon, and I remember the first time that I ever went to a Giants game was 1962, and we sat in the upper deck, and we could see into the broadcast booths, and this was very fascinating to me. My dad had a little transistor radio with a little earphone you put in your ear, and I could listen to Russ and Lon and watch them do the broadcast. I watched them broadcast the game more than I actually watched the game that I was sitting there supposedly watching. But there was also a seminal moment that occurred in that very first game for me as a 10-year-old in the visiting broadcast booth. I also took a look at those broadcasters, see what they were doing. And right in the middle of an inning, the broadcaster, as he's describing the pitch, there's a curveball outside, ball 1, took a big handful of French fries, and he ate this whole handful of French fries. Must have been 10 or 12 French fries all at the same time, and he's chewing on these fries. The next pitch comes in, he doesn't miss a beat, and he says, there's a ball fouled away. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And then he grabbed a cup of whatever and took a big pull on that cup. And as a 10-year-old at Candlestick Park, I said to myself right then and there, that is the life for me.
Jon honed his skills as a junior announcer growing up in Hayward, California. He attended Hayward High School, class of 1969, and shortly after graduation, Jon was on his way.
I went to the College of San Mateo and did disc jockey shows, ball games, sports reports, everything on the radio, the FM radio station they had there, and the UHF TV station. But just the idea that maybe I'll get a job where I can do all of those things and just make my living as a broadcaster.
So opportunity met preparation. The Oakland A's needed a number 2 broadcaster, and Jon was ready.
And I called him up and I said, I just heard your tape. If you'd be interested in our job, would you mind coming to the Oakland Coliseum office tomorrow and we'll talk about this job.
I had some natural ability, God-given, but I also had a chance, a stroke of huge luck.
And I said, first of all, tell me, how did you get a broadcast of the Giants game? I don't think they'd let you up in the press box. He said, I had a handheld tape recorder and I sat in the bleachers at Candlestick Park and broadcast a game.
The whole experience was much more intense and much more enjoyable because of that, where I was focused on every pitch and everything that was going on and everything that went on in relation to what had gone on earlier in the game. I was right there on top of everything.
So I said, Jon, I'm very interested in you as a partner. I said, I have to call Charlie Finley. So I called Charlie, went up in his office there at the Coliseum, and I called Charlie and I said, Charlie, I found our number 2 announcer. And he said, oh yeah, who is it? And I told him, well, Jon Miller, you wouldn't know him because he hasn't been doing play-by-play anywhere. He's been at a Santa Rosa television station, I think, but let me play the tape for you, a little bit of it. So I played a little bit of the tape into the phone. And then I picked it back up and I said, well, Charlie, how does that sound? Number 2 guy pretty good, huh? And he said, number 2, blankety blank, he could be our number 1 guy. And he just roared laughing and he said, well, if you want that guy, hire him.
And then, lo and behold, at age 22, I'm hired by the Oakland A's to broadcast Major League Baseball, which was just astounding. In spring training, the A's played in Mesa Rendezvous Park, an old wooden ballpark. And Monty Moore and I sat basically at the top of the stands out in the open. And somebody took this photo, and this is what they used in the A's yearbook as the photo of me and Monty. And that may be the worst publicity photo ever taken. Because we're both squinting into the sun and we're both not even aware that they're taking our photo. We're just trying to work the game.
Jon spent only 1 season with the A's, broadcasting the 1974 World Series as Oakland beat the Dodgers 4-1. Then it was on to Texas for 2 seasons, the Red Sox for 3, and then Jon was about to gain national exposure.
So those are all off old Queen Elizabeth II, which for a long time was considered to be the last transatlantic liner in the days when the way to get across the Atlantic was on a ship, not a jet plane. And so I was into that, I guess because I traveled so much, into that way of travel versus getting into a plane and sitting there like this for hours.
Jon and Janine Miller love to travel, and this past February, they made a trip that they will never forget.
When the Hall of Fame called to tell me that I won this award, we were in Cartagena, Colombia, and we actually were on a ship, and we came back on the ship, and right after we got on the ship, Janine went up on the deck, and I was going to change my shirt, and I got the call. And so I went up to tell Janine about it, and I found her on the promenade deck, and I said, sweetheart, I have a question for you. Have you ever slept with a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame?
I was like, what? What are you
She was a little offended.
And I'm like, oh my God, you did it.
And then she said, as a matter of fact, yes, I have.
The Millers were married in 1987, but they've known each other since childhood. In fact, they grew up across the street from one another in this neighborhood in Hayward.
Actually, I'm 5 years older than he is, so I actually was his babysitter at one point. Our parents were best friends, and he was 5 years younger, so I was 15, he was 10. And yeah, it was crazy. Never in our wildest dreams, well, he says in his wildest dreams, it was true, but that he would marry me, but I never even imagined it. So
As time would have it, she was married and I got married. We had children, we had families. And then 20 years after that big date, we were both single again, and we kind of ran into each other, and very exciting. Got very excited about it, and anyway, we ended up getting married. So
It's been pretty exciting.
I don't know. Has it worked out well for you, or is it just me?
Very well.
Oh, all right.
Together they have 4 children, and the Miller kids were raised in Baltimore, where Jon was the radio voice of the Orioles for 14 seasons.
And when our son Alex was 6 years old, he'd come down the stairs and she'd say, "Alex, come see Dad." And his response was to run to the television set. And he's looking at the TV and for a few seconds and finally says, "He's not on." That was his frame of reference for me, Yeah, come see Dad. Where is he? I don't see him. He's right behind you, yeah. Oh, you mean the real Dad? Wow, look at that.
Swung at, it's gone! Goal! Yes!
You see this at the end of this game?
Which one?
Galarraga.
Had a perfect game, right?
8 2/3. Last play, ground ball to Cabrera, off the bag, gets it, throws to Galarraga, covering. It looks like hits the bag, beats him. Jim Joyce calls the guy safe.
Wait till you see this. This is.
Did he hit the bag or not?
He was on the bag.
Definitely on the bag?
Definitely. Wasn't close. Definitely.
Did you see the replay?
Yeah.
Definitely on the bag?
The voice of the Giants even gets passionate about a game 2,500 miles away in Detroit, as Jon discusses the near-perfect game thrown by Detroit Tigers pitcher Armando Galarraga, which at this point had just ended.
But there's no question he tagged the bag?
No question. Without question.
Every angle.
This is it.
This is it.
This is 2 down. This is it right here.
He double clutched a little bit, Galarraga. Had a little trouble getting it out of his glove or something.
Well, you should have let the other guy field it.
Yeah, what's he doing over there?
But I mean, all of it's moot when you see the replay. He's out by.
Yeah, you're right. This is the greatest one right here.
Oh!
Second, Walton at first. Bedrosian throws to Sandberg, and the pitch is grounded to second base. Thompson has it, throws to first. It's over. 27 years of waiting have come to an end. The Giants have won the pennant.
Longtime voice of the Giants, Hank Greenwald, retired after the 1996 season. The Giants' then executive vice president, Larry Baer, had the unenviable task of finding the perfect replacement, continuing the strong tradition of great Giants broadcasters.
When you lose a long-time broadcaster to retirement, you're never really prepared to project a voice of the team onto the fans, because it's just such a big thing, and you want to make sure that it's somebody that could wear well for a long time.
We knew that it was going to be almost impossible to replace Hank Greenwald, and when Hank decided to leave, it was like, this is not good, because there's going to be a void here for a long time.
So when you go down and you look who's out there, you want somebody who stylistically you think works, and Jon Miller is not a homer. He is well respected, high integrity, has some other elements that we felt were really great, which are great sense of humor and great flair for the dramatic.
Rounding third, heading home. Here comes a throw, and it's outside! Good! And the Giants have won the pennant. The Giants are the champions of the National League, and they come pouring out of the dugout. Kenny Lofton, the man they love to hate in St. Louis, knocks in the winning run and knocks a stake through the heart of the Cardinals. The Cardinals are dead. The Giants are going to the World Series.
There wasn't a void at all. Did not skip a beat. And as entertaining as Hank was, Jon took over that role, and in a different way was just as entertaining.
You cannot tempt baseball guys, my friend. They will mess with you.
The broadcast team of Mike Krukow, Dwayne Kuiper, Dave Fleming, and Jon Miller have been together now for 7 seasons. They've done hundreds of ball games together. But it is this time on their daily post-game rap show where fans can truly see and hear both their passion for the game and the strong bond they have for one another.
I think we have the best broadcast crew that anybody's got.
We genuinely actually like spending time together. Maybe that's a new concept to say. You know, there are some groups that I think some egos get in the way of maybe that kind of chemistry within a broadcast crew. We don't have any of those problems.
We see examples all the time where the only time two partners will speak to each other is when they're doing a game, and once the game's over, they separate and they go their own ways. Well, we couldn't. We're so much further from that. It's not even funny.
Dave, you knucklehead!
I couldn't believe it.
Come on, what are you thinking about? You did not see that coming?
I didn't see it coming.
As soon as it went in the air, I went, "Watch this."
I got to tell you, one of the really great things that we look forward to during the course of a year is when the four of us can go out to dinner. Just Kipe, Jon Miller, Dave Fleming, and myself. The four of us go out and we just have dinner, and it's usually a 3.5-hour ordeal, and we kill a few bottles of wine, but the conversations are just priceless.
When Barry Zito pitched his tail off and battled as hard as he could, he left the ball game 2-1.
I think Mike Krukow is as good as there is in terms of analyzing the game, but also having the enthusiasm for the game. Some former players, they go into broadcasting and the idea is, cool, I'm still getting a check, I'm around the game, and I can go play golf all day, every day, and I can travel around the league and play golf. The Kruk's passion is the game.
Cool. So what am I left with?
You're
Mike?
left with
something on the table?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The little bird or something?
Oh no, you got tons of guys.
Zito, maybe.
If you didn't know that Dwayne Kuiper was a big league player for many, many years, and you just happened upon him hearing his broadcast, it would never occur to you that he was a former player. Dave Fleming, everybody's after him. Every time you turn around, you get to the off season and you hear, well, this team down south, they're looking for somebody, and they're calling Dave.
I mean, John's a guy that I learned about baseball broadcasting from because I grew up in Washington, D.C., and John did the Orioles games for all those years. So as a kid, driving to Memorial Stadium, driving home after a late night game on the long ride home, that's who I listened to, was John. So I sort of learned about broadcasting from John. I also learned how good he was.
So I'm going Aubrey Huff. They had a chance in the first inning to jump ahead of Billingsley. Guy had not pitched in 16 days in the game, and Aubrey Huff came through.
I know a lot of people who have been hooked by our broadcasters. That may have been casual fans, just kind of getting into baseball, and then whoo, listening to John and Dwayne and Mike and Dave, you get hooked, and all of a sudden they're not casual fans anymore. They're listening every day.
1-0 pitch. Swing, there's a shot! It's headed for Oakland, way back there, and adios! A grand slam for Sandoval. 5-0 Giants.
And Joe, we got good pennant races going in every one of the 6 divisions in baseball.
Well, they're becoming more interesting every day.
Jon Miller and Joe Morgan have been together in the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball broadcast booth for 21 seasons. Their voices are the summer soundtrack for many across America. So it was fitting that Jon heard a familiar voice when he received the call of a lifetime.
He was on the phone with the director of the Hall of Fame when they called me that day in Cartagena to tell me I had won the Ford C. Frick Award. And I was really touched by that Joe wanted to be on the line and to congratulate me. And after all these years, we're almost like an old married couple.
We're just different enough. Jon sees the game a little bit more like a fan. I see the game as a player and a fan, So I think that meshes very, very well. And I think Jon, the only thing is Jon has a great sense of humor. And I don't think we often get that out as much as we used to. He used to do imitations of Vin Scully.
Vinny, they really don't want any more from you. Yeah. Just one other interjection, if I may. And I've said this so many times in so many different venues, that Jon Miller and Joe Angel are the best baseball broadcasters in America in their price range. Gotta run, gotta get back to Dodger Stadium. See you guys later. Thanks, Vinny.
Well,
hysterical. First he would do me, then he would do me as if I were a Japanese announcer. It was very funny, and there's no malevolent spirit about it. It's just good-natured fun, and I accepted it that way.
So he's going into the Hall of Fame, and we kind of feel like a little bit of us is going in there with him. And I think everybody who's ever listened to him feels that way. They feel that they're friends with Jon Miller.
I mean, you talk about entertainment, personality, impersonations, knowledge of the game, great storyteller. I mean, these are the reasons why Jon's a Hall of Famer.
Here he is going into the Hall of Fame, and it's quite something because you know, he grew up listening to Hall of Famers, Russ and Lon. Now he is a Hall of Famer, and I think that in our community in San Francisco, we're blessed with really broadcasters that are at the very, very top, rise to the top of the industry.
In fact, when they called me, I immediately, somehow I had this bad feeling that they might take it back, so I just immediately said, I accept. And so I'm probably the only one who's ever won that award that was his response. Oh, I accept. Great.
So the next time Janine and Jon set out on a long cruise, they can feel comfortable turning off their cell phones.
Bonds one home run away from history, and he swings, and there's a long one, deep in the right center field, way back there, it's gone! A home run! Into the center field bleachers, to the left of the 421-foot marker, an extraordinary shot to the deepest part of the yard. And Barry Bonds, with 756 home runs, he has hit more home runs than anyone who has ever played the game. Henry Aaron, the home run king, 755. He hit his last one 31 years ago. And now tonight in downtown San Francisco, Barry Bonds hits number 700.